The Unmarked Door. Chapter 1. The Welcome Wrought Iron. I still remember the day I moved into my new home, a sprawling old house on Elm Street that had been vacant for as long as anyone could recall. The walls were painted a faded yellow, and the shutters wore an eerie, weathered gray. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. The kind of place you might find in one of those dusty tomes about forgotten towns and haunted mansions from another era. As the moving truck rumbled up the driveway, my stomach knotted with a mix of excitement and dread. The real estate agent assured me it had been renovated top to bottom, that there was no need to worry about any undesirable past. But what if she didn't know everything? The iron gate at the back led into a garden I'd yet to explore, its intricate design twisting like skeletal fingers. On my first day here, I decided to step out and see where it went. The wind rustled through the gate's latticework. Not enough to make any real noise, but just enough to catch my attention. Then, an unmistakable whispering began. Words on a breeze. Get out. It was soft at first, like a gentle plea from an old man in a hushed conversation. I spun around, searching for someone, anyone, but there was no one there. Shaking it off as my imagination, I turned back to the house with a smile. New beginnings are all about embracing the unknown. Yet every time the wind picked up, the whisper returned, sometimes clearer. Run from me. Each day that followed, those same two words echoed through the iron bars like an ominous warning. It made little sense. Who could be living here? No one else was supposed to be around. That enigmatic whispering left me restless and wondering if I had made a grave mistake. Intrigued, I ventured into the overgrown garden. Dandelions and thistles choking the once manicured lawns, vines clawing at the brick path. Moss crept up the stone walls like aged spots on wrinkled skin. A chill ran down my spine as I approached a door hidden behind a tangle of foliage. Ancient hinges creaked with each step. Rust covered every inch of it. Vines hung from the door handle like nature's own curtains. What could have been locked for so long? Curiosity won over fear, and I pushed aside the leaves to open it wide enough to peek inside. A dark cavity barely visible in the fading light. Shadows lurked where shadows shouldn't. The wind howled through the garden, carrying an unsettling tone that sounded like a sigh. Then another whisper. Let me in. My heart raced. Who was trying to communicate with me? As dusk crept over, I returned to my room, unable to shake the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. In the dead hours of night, when sleep eluded me, strange dreams plagued me. A woman's weeping, children's laughter that grew fainter until silence consumed it all. Shadows darted at the edge of vision, disappearing as I reached for them. Upon rising, sunlight painted the room in golden hues, and I vowed to ignore these preoccupations, focus on school. But on my second morning, the whispering gate greeted me like an old friend. I know what you did. It wasn't just a plea or a warning. It sounded accusatory now. My mind raced through scenarios. Could someone be playing tricks? I inspected the house from top to bottom, but found no signs of occupation. A young couple strolled by, admiring the architecture. Beautiful place, they said as we exchanged pleasantries. They spoke of renovations and a new owner who wanted solitude. No mention of strange occurrences here. Perhaps it was a trick of the wind? I told myself it must be. Yet that evening, under stars too numerous to count, an icy breeze brushed against my neck while stepping back from the gate. Get out, while you still can. My imagination had never been so active. The following night, when moonlight painted everything silver, I heard a floorboard groan downstairs around 1:30 a.m. Creaks were normal in old houses. It was just settling wood or squirrels. So I convinced myself as I listened, ears straining for more signs of life. Instead of silence, the groaning turned into shuffling, almost footsteps. Each step drew closer until they stopped right outside my room. A knock at 2:47 a.m. broke the stillness. An old-fashioned door knocker shaped like a lion's head stared back when I opened it cautiously. No one stood there. I let out a breath, wondering if fatigue played tricks. On the third night, the creaking started sooner, louder this time. My room was bathed in a pale moonbeam that made the shadows dance. Footsteps retreated into darkness. Chapter 2. The Creaking Floorboard. Doubts crept in like the creeping vines outside those hidden doors. What else about this house wasn't they telling me? That same night, I sat hunched over my books, studying by a single lamp. Another floorboard creaked below, louder now, closer still as it ascended the stairs. My heart pounded out a rhythm in the quiet room. The door swung open with a groan, letting a slice of chill air and darkness inside. Dust motes danced in that beam. I swallowed hard and called out, "Hello." No response. Shadows crept along the walls towards me. Long, dark figures. One loomed behind my chair before melting into nothingness. My breath came out in small puffs, eyes fixed on the entrance. The air grew colder, still, as something moved up the final stair with agonizing slowness. In the doorway stood a shadow, so opaque it was almost black, then another beside it. They resolved into two people clad in tattered clothes from another era. One woman's white dress hung to her ankles, and the man wore a coat I recognized. My grandfather had an antique like that, one he never used on our trips. The woman's eyes were empty pits when she met mine. She mouthed something, "Run." The man held up a finger for silence as wind rushed past us all three. Then they vanished into thin air. My pulse hammered at the confines of my ears. I listened until they reappeared by the door and whispered in unison, "Leave now." My resolve faltered, but curiosity won out. I followed them down to the kitchen table where, inexplicably, a steaming mug sat, rimmed with frost. Frost! The woman beckoned me closer. Intricate patterns adorned her dark skin like tattoos that seemed to dance in the moonlight. "Come," she mouthed, so close their lips brushed my earlobe. I took the cup and felt the mug's weight as it was meant for someone older than both of us combined. They whispered more, words barely audible but unmistakable, urging me away from this place. As they spoke, shapes flickered in the corners, shadows that hadn't been there a moment before. Shadowy figures swirled behind them, making an arc of movement not quite human. My skin prickled as the wind picked up once more. I turned to leave, but caught one last glimpse. Their faces twisted into wretched smiles. In the next breath, they vanished. The mug trembled in my hand. Frost melted away as if heated by an invisible flame, leaving a message. "Emma, leave this place." Chapter 3. The Vanishing Notes. Days blended together with strange encounters and increasingly eerie whispers until sleep became elusive due to the shadows' relentless appearances and the couple's visits. Always at night, I'd find forgotten objects, or they'd be gone in an instant. "What do you want?" My voice cracked, though no one else was around. The woman held out a photograph of a house like this one. Her eyes were black wells, his gaze hollow as he placed the image under a book. "Tell them." In it stood a girl with eyes marred by dark circles, an open door that wasn't there in our home now. It seemed to whisper, secrets I'd heard no one utter. My great-grandmother's story of this house echoed. A little girl who lived here, alone and frightened, until she fled at night into the woods and was never seen again. Then they were gone, for the first time without me chasing after them, desperate for answers. As I watched from my window, shadows inched toward the woods, the pair leading the procession of ghostly apparitions. Frost on my cup transformed into a note. You are not alone. It was then that a piece fell away, an envelope hidden inside that antique mug. Run, Emma. No more whispers came at night. In the silence after they disappeared, I opened what was to be expected, an invitation penned by hand. The little girl's story comes alive with you here. The shadows returned at noon. They'd wait for me on the porch. I had two options, stay and confront or flee. Frost danced across my hands, revealing a path. The couple's eyes locked onto mine, pleading in their depths. Frost became an icy breeze as they mouthed come. That evening, an envelope appeared beside my door. Run. My great-grandmother was the little girl who fled. And I realized the connection. I must know more about this house and its past to decide on a path forward. Frost now adorned the picture within it. Her face. The woman beckoned me to follow as they entered the woods, one step at a time. Leaves crunched with each footfall, but mine was soundless when I followed. In the distance, a structure materialized, a house resembling the photograph, where shadows swirled around its entrance, eager for my arrival.